Hey everybody, David Thompson here, coming to you today from NAMM Studio, and really just kind of want to tell you my story today, a little bit about, call it my humble beginning, call it about how I came to the Lord, my experience, and really just want to, before we do that, take a minute and thank Levi Bradford for the studio and his expertise, and Ben Nobles as well. So Levi runs the audio and Ben runs the video. And really, we're really compressed on time here, so I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version. I think it's really important to get it out there and just talk to people if you're struggling with anything, or if you feel like you're kind of in the throes of things and all you see is darkness. Maybe you came from a toxic environment. Maybe you're in one now. Maybe you're super confused about how you see all these other people around you excelling and succeeding, and you feel, whether it's true or not, maybe you feel like they were handed these things and they were given things on a silver platter, or given these gifts that weren't bestowed upon you. And I'd love to just share my experience with you and tell you about my upbringing and kind of where I'm at today, and some of the biggest things that have made an impact in my life. I'm one of the guys who came from nothing. I was born in Salt Lake. My biological parents divorced when I was 6 months old. And the first thing I want to say is that, the Bible is very clear. It's one of the 10 commandments that you always honor your mother and father. So my hope is to certainly do that, although the facts are the facts, right? I don't want to dishonor anybody. However, the facts are the facts, and I'm just going to put them out there. Parents divorced when I was 6 months old. Mom remarried. I come from a long line of alcoholics and drug addicts. In fact, all my lineage, parents, grandparents, everybody have all died from alcoholism. Mom went through this her whole life. She actually just passed about a month ago from alcoholism. And so I say all that to say that I came from absolute nothing. We came from a very toxic and very disrupted environment. We were always poor. We always lived in trailer houses or duplexes. And in Salt Lake, we left there when I was about 8 years old to move to Las Vegas. That's where my mom's second husband was from. We were living with him. And we moved out to Las Vegas, which is great, right? For a toxic environment, if you need somewhere to go, Vegas is the place. And we moved there because Utah, I'm sure, was the problem. And it went from bad to worse. They got divorced. Mom jumped around, took us with her. One of my uncles told me, he said, one of the hardest things about watching you guys when you're growing up is the way your mother just drug you guys all over the country with no stability. And we didn't have that. We didn't have stability. I understand today that my parents did the best that they could with the information that they was given. And at that time in my life, so fast forward, I'm 13 years old. Mom and second husband are divorced, have been for a while. Mom's jumping around. The best thing my mom could do at that time was to take my brother and I and leave us at somebody's house on their doorstep and say that she'd be back, and we didn't see her. So then we had to get shipped back to Utah, and it was toxic. And so now I'm bouncing around from place to place. Who wants me? Who doesn't? You can't stay here. I got into a fight. I can't stay there. And I watched drugs and alcohol destroy my whole family, my whole life. That's all I ever seen. That's all I ever got to witness. And again, my parents did the best that they could. The one thing that I swore off my whole life, which was drugs and alcohol, because I seen the results and what it yielded, was the one thing I promised I would never touch, is exactly what I turned to fill that big dark spot in my heart. Because when the person who is supposed to love you the most leaves you somewhere and doesn't come back to get you, heavy lies the scar. I'm going to leave out all the gory details because it's completely irrelevant. The bottom line is that wonderful train of substance abuse and alcoholism. I rode that wonderful train from 13, 14 all the way until 29 years old. I got into that habit of what I like to call fear, forget everything and run. I ran from place to place and city to city and girl to girl and gym to gym and job to job. I was restless, irritable, and discontent, and no matter where I was, I needed to be somewhere else. So I left Las Vegas in October of '99, showed up in Austin, Texas. When I arrived in Austin, Texas, I probably weighed about 140 pounds. I took a Greyhound bus to get there. I had $3 in my wallet and the clothes on my back, and that's what I had amounted to at almost 21 years old. Because Vegas was the problem, right? So I lived in Austin for 7 years to get away from Vegas. Well, I left Austin 7 years later in worse shape than I came up. then I showed up. And it's also important to mention that at 18 years old, I knew that I caught this wonderful genetic bullet called, addiction, alcoholism. And I started going to meetings and treatments and facilities and IOPs. And every time that I tried to get well, I could stop all right. I just couldn't stay stopped. And when I said I was going to stop, I couldn't hold to it. And so I finally, after multiple overdoses and suicide attempts and just being in some really, really dark places, people ask all the time, how did you manage all this? Well, I always worked. I always worked. I can tell you about a couple years when I was in Austin and I was homeless. I had nowhere to live. I did a lot of couch surfing. I heard it earlier today at another meeting, a podcast that we did. I had no permanent residence, a lot of sleeping in my car. I did a lot of that. And I remember getting to Dallas. I moved to Dallas in, I think it was June of '06. Thinking now, of course, Austin is the problem. And I'm 27 years old. I got serious about going to another treatment facility. Did that in '06, stayed sober for about 4 months. And then I just started working. I made work my God. I started working 16 hours a day and money. And it took me about 3 or 4 months of doing that. And I was sitting at the bar and off to the races again. And when I go off to the races, I like to go off the grid. So that was in April of '07. And again, I just went hard and fast until August of 2008. August of 2008, I called somebody. I'd spent about 8 years in and out of this woman's life. And I told her, I said, I need to try treatment one more time or I'm just going to go ahead and finish the job. And she took me to a treatment facility, and it was there where some people came in and were telling my story and had the exact same consequences and a lack of ability to control their drinking. And I asked them what they had to do. What did you do to stop? Here's these people who had the exact same story as me, been down the same road, a lot of the same consequences, the same actions. And I said, Mister, what did you do to stop? And they said, you got to surrender, David. You got to surrender. This moving around and trying this, that, and another and jumping, and it doesn't work. The only thing you can do is surrender. And I remember in Homeward Bound, August of 2008, I hit my knees and I surrendered. And I opened my arms to God and I asked him, I said, God, I don't know what you have planned for me. I don't know what you want me to do. You put it in front of me and I'm going to do it. I don't ever want to feel like this again, because I hadn't lived in a long time. I had been existing a very terrible existence for 15 years, from 14 to 29 was the time that I was in my alcoholism and addiction, and the last 7 was trying to stop, right? So it wasn't fun, and I told God, I don't know what I have to do to never feel like this again, but I'm gonna do it. And immediately, even though the external situation hadn't changed, I was still homeless, I was still unemployed, I was still unemployable, I had nowhere to go, no money, I had, $80,000 in debt, I owed money to a lot of cities, had warrants, and the whole destruction combo platter, if you can imagine it, I had it. And none of those external circumstances had changed, but I drew one of the freest breaths that I had ever drawn my whole life. Ever since I was 5 years old, I remember running around in these hayfields in Salt Lake City, Utah, and being free and looking up at the clouds and laying on my back, and I was free. And I drew one of those free breaths for the first time in 25 years. Nothing on the outside had changed. I immediately knew that God had rescued me. And I get out of treatment. I slowly started putting together the pieces of my life, putting it back together. And in the first couple years, I noticed that things started happening. Some really neat things started happening. God started putting some amazing people in my life. Now, I've never had a father. I have a biological father right now. He's in Salt Lake. I'm working on getting him up here so that we can rebuild a classic car before he passes. He has stage 4 cancer, throat cancer, just had a laryngectomy, full laryngectomy. We don't know how much longer he has. And he's all I ever wanted to be, but he was never in my life. So God, when I was about 31 years old, started putting these amazing people in my life, a lot of male figures. And I got to learn, how to be a man and how to rely on other men for for things. And these men in my life that God put there taught me things that probably you and other people around the world, you got to learn these from your parents when you were 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I didn't. Remember, I was in a state of absence of parenthood from 14 all the way until 29. So again, I'm a couple years into this deal. Now maybe we're at 2010. God's put these people in my life and things started happening. The next 5 years, things got really, really good. There was some stability. I was strengthening my relationship with the Lord. I was out giving selflessly of my time to help other people to achieve the same free breath that I had drawn with nothing expected in return other than to watch them help others. And I will never forget, part of my story too is about dating. I was 36 years old before I met my wife. And at 36 years old, I had never been married. I had never had children. And I remember asking God plenty of times, hey, God, right, me telling God, hey, God, I'm ready. Hey, God, I'm ready. I feel like I'm ready for you to put that special person in my life. Why won't you bring her to me? And I had this conversation with a buddy of mine, and he said, maybe you are ready, David. Maybe you are ready. Maybe she's not. Maybe God is still working on her. And it was just one of those amazing moments that you'll never forget. Well, fast forward the tape a few years later, I decided to do a bodybuilding show. And that was where I met my wife, of all places. And I met her, and it's a whirlwind love story. We met in April. We started dating in June. I proposed in August, married her in October, and we started our family immediately. At the same time, boy, she's not a risk taker, but she took a very big risk on me. At the exact same time, I had just started a new career in financial planning with no guaranteed compensation. You're building your own book of business. You're out there learning and name gathering and marketing and billing and doing everything. And so that was in June of 2015. Today, to give you an idea, we're in June of 2021. So the last 6 years, I cannot even tell you how blessed we have been and how much Lord, our God, has done for us. I have an amazing wife who is not a wife. She's not simply a wife. This is my best friend. And we have something that I don't believe that many couples share, because I see a lot of couples, especially in my industry. You see it on Facebook, and you see it in church, and you see it in these groups, and they act like they get along well, and then behind the curtain, they just don't know how to talk to each other. So my wife is my best friend. I have an amazing family. I have right now a 4-year-old, and I have a 2-year-old who will be 3 in about a month. We have amazing communication. We have great parenting style. Worldly things, we have some worldly things. We're not about worldly things, but we have a nice place, and I have a couple neat little toys. But most importantly is I have this amazing gift and this amazing ability to be able to freely give what was given to me. And the further I go down this road, God has put me in an amazing Bible study at a cigar lounge of all places. Who would have thought that hanging out at a cigar lounge would result in a Bible study and a fellowship of 20 other strong Bible-believing Christians, right? It's been incredible. He's put us in the right home, our church home, and we were so blessed to get to start a T-ball team for 3- and 4-year-olds, and we got to minister to the kids, and we got to minister to the parents, and now we're going to do the same thing up in our area where we live. And it has just been such a blessing to be able to surrender and have God do all of these things through me and for me. And I'm going to wrap up, and I want to kind of tie up with this. You know, my mom abandoned me at an early age. I held on to some resentment from 13 years old until, well, I'm 42 now, so until 42. I got a phone call that she wasn't doing well in March, and she lived in Truth or Consequence, New Mexico. So I took the family up there to go see her, and my mother and I got to sit down and have this trip of healing. And she told us that she had something wrong with her pancreas. She said it wasn't cancer. She said she was going to be fine. And I just told her, I said, Mom, I want to tell you that I love you. And I know that today, looking at things through a 42-year-old lens, you did the best you could with what you had at that time when I was 13. And I didn't see it that way when I was 13, 14, 15. But I want you to know right now, I could step out there right now and get hit by a bus, Mom, and you could too. If anything is to happen, I just want you to know that I love you. I forgive you. I don't have any resentment towards you, and I want to strengthen the relationship with you. I want you to be a part of my life and my children's life, and what do we need to do to make that happen? And a month later, my mom died. She just passed away about a month ago. I found out 4 days ago, the man that she left behind was going through the house and purging, and he's working on his healing experience as well. And he has found shoe boxes of letters that my mom had written to herself over the last year saying that she had cancer, and she knew she had cancer, and she never told any of us. She didn't tell him. She said, when we'd ask her at the hospital, are you sure it's not cancer? Is it this? Is it that? She told us no. And if you've tuned out on me, just kind of reel it back in for a second, okay? This is the kind of thing that normally years ago, quite frankly, even a couple years ago, when you go and make a trip of healing for somebody and then find out a month later that they had not been transparent with you about something as major as dying and having cancer and not giving anybody an opportunity to come and say goodbye, it's typically one of those things that would throw somebody, myself especially, right back into a whirlwind of resentment and wondering why and questioning and all these bedevilments. And however, because of a very loving God today, I understand that my mom had her reasons. I don't know what they were. And I viewed it as selfish in the beginning. Today, though, I view it as selfless. Perhaps she didn't want to intrude on our lives or have us rearrange our lives to come and see her. And those things are not of my character, right? Those things are only because of a very loving God. And the things that he has done for us on top of allow us to be able to have healthy relationships and heal and be able to be what I believe myself to be as a good father. I think my children would agree. To be a good husband, I hope that my wife would agree. To be a great business owner and tend to my clients on a very what can I do for these people, not what can I get from these people mentality, I think that they would agree. All of those things, again, come through God. And so if you're struggling, if you're wondering what is that thing that I'm missing without knowing anything about your particulars, anything about your business, anything about your personality, your history, your past, the answer is always God. It's always God. If you can plug into God and build a relationship with God, which means spending time in the Word, praying, putting yourself around people who have some experience with God and let them pour into you and find some people that you can pour into, you will find that you are not in that position for very long. Now, to talk about the monetary stuff, we have a very successful financial planning practice. When I say we, I mean God and I. This is nothing that I did. All the glory to God. My wife is an amazing mother. She is a highly compensated individual at her firm. She does medical staff recruiting. We have offices, we have toys, swimming pools. We have this amazing family. We have a great network of people. I'm here with a couple guys today that I have built in my network. We have all of those things, all of that monetary stuff. And without God, we don't have any of it, right? The whole thing, it's all about God, folks, because until I surrendered and welcomed God into my life, and ultimately I did it just to get some relief. I did it to get some relief from the alcoholism. And if I only knew how good it would be, right? I found everything in God that I was ever looking for at the bottom of that bottle. There's no question. I did it for the relief, and I got so much more. And God has done all of these things with me and through me, and He will do it for you too. So if you ever need help with somebody, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my contact information on here on some graphics. Reach out to me, reach out to a friend, reach out to somebody who is in a good Bible-based church. Get involved in a life group. Ask somebody to pray with you. If you don't know how to pray, ask somebody to teach you. It's real simple. You got an opening, right? Our Lord in heaven. You've got a thank you. We want to thank you for keeping us alive today and getting us over to the NAM studio. You have a request. I'm asking that you take care of my friends, Ben Nobles and Levi Bradford. Bless them and bless their business. And then you have a closing. In your heavenly name we pray. Amen. If you don't know how to pray, I just gave you the format. There's an opening, there's a thanking, there's a request, and then there's a closing. Start praying and start spending time in the Word and get together with some people. I'm nobody special, right? I didn't deserve this life. God did it for me, and I promise you, God will do it for you too. Y'all have a super blessed day. Take care.